Welcome to Intro to Arduino. We have a lot of very fun stuff to talk about today, namely, what is an Arduino? How does it work? What are those things on it? How do I put code on it? Huh, where am I? So let's take a look at what I got over here. So, got a few things on this table. I got a multimeter. We'll talk about that. I have some breadboards. We'll talk about those too in a different video. I have some inputs and outputs and resistors. We'll talk about that in another video. I set the scene here. But we have the star of the show, the Arduino. So, what is an Arduino? Arduinos are a just specific type of microcontroller. They're open source, so lots of different people are making them. Because they're open source, they've been made into all kinds of different cool form factors. So like you'll see them bigger, smaller, different shapes, different sizes, different amounts of pins, different things, different capabilities. Some of them can connect to the internet. Some of them just, so cool, like all different types. And we're starting off with the Uno because it is one of the more simple ones to get started with. Coding is really simple. You don't have to worry about any like fancy stuff. And it's just pretty straightforward. So yours might look a little different than mine. Again, because it's open source, a different company might have made yours. Mine's black. It's made by Elegoo. Not a big deal if yours is a different brand. Okay, so what are we seeing when we first look at the Arduino? So the first things first, where's the like brain? That's what this is. This the chip. This stores all the code, has all the logic, all the stuff on the chip. That's what's controlling the system. This here is where you connect the Arduino to your computer so that you can upload code. It also receives power from the computer when you plug it in, and it can do pretty well with just computer power unless you're running a bunch of motors, in which case you need external power supply. If you are wanting to power it not from your computer, we got this fun little barrel jack here where you can attach a power supply. And then on the sides, we have our two sections of pins. We have the digital pins are on this side, the analog pins are on this side, and then we have our power rail over here. So let's look at these a little more closely, starting with digital, which is the best. Give me 1 second to focus up. Yeah. All right. So notice on the side it says digital PWM. We will talk about what PWM means in a different video, but essentially what you need to know about digital pins at this very moment is that digital pins can function as inputs or outputs. So they can either be listening to information coming in from sensors, or they can be telling things what to do, like turning an LED on and off, making a speaker say something, making a motor turn. They can like be like, hey you, turn. Or they can say, hey, that light sensor, ooh, it's bright, thank you for telling me, right? But digital pins are essentially kind of like a light switch. They can be on or off. Or they can be paying attention to whether something is on or off. Like a button is not pressed or it is pressed, right? That's a digital type of sensor. On the other side here, we've got our analog pins. That's these. They say A0 through A5. Analog sensors are primarily used for inputs. But an analog sensor is different from a digital sensor. An analog pin is different than a digital pin in that it functions more like a dimmer switch as opposed to a on-off light switch. So you can get anywhere from 0 all the way up to the max value, like a range of values as opposed to 0 or 1. Like a light switch is on or off lights, but dimmer switch you can get medium brightness, and that's great. And then above the analog pins is a section where you have all the power pins. So we have VIN, which means voltage in. It's where you can send power to the Arduino if you want. We've got some GND. Notice there's also a GND on this side, That stands for ground. And essentially what you need to know about power at this very moment is that electricity always needs to flow in a complete circle. It comes out of somewhere, either the pin or the 5 volts or 3 volts. It goes through your circuit, and then it should always end at ground. So power flows to ground. Remember, lightning, right, comes from the sky to the ground. And you have 3 ground pins just in case you are grounding a bunch of stuff. These 3 ground pins, fun fact, they all go to the same place. It's called a common ground. Does not matter which one of these you plug into when you're grounding something. You could plug in a bunch of stuff to one ground pin, and we'll talk about that later. We're going to talk about breadboards. Above the ground pins, we have the 5 volt and the 3.3 volt. That's just a place to get power source for things that you're powering. You can turn things on and off. And then above that, we got a couple things that you don't need to worry about right now. The last thing to point out is that if you ever need to restart the program that you've uploaded onto your Arduino, that's what this little button is for. It's a reset button. It basically just reboots your Arduino and starts the code running over from scratch. So that's what that is. Very cool, right? Next thing we're going to talk about is how to put code on it. So I'm going to pause for a sec, pull up the code stuff. We'll be back in a sec.